Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Good afternoon. The hour is 6:37, and I apologize, we're running a few minutes late, but I will now call the Town of Exeter Select Board meeting to order. The first order of business this evening is the board will be going downstairs to the wheelwright room for approximately a half hour for some board and committee interviews, and we hope to be up here by 7 or maybe a few minutes afterwards. So the board will go down for our board interviews. Thank you.
For this week's report, NH Fish and Game and UN. For this week's report, the Kingston Road Improvement Project gets underway next week. The solar eclipse darkens skies over Exeter. Town to host Earth Week roadside cleanup. The town updates zoning ordinances to streamline the process. And a recap from last week's Exeter Lit Fest. For Exeter TV, I'm Bob Glowacki, and this is the Exeter Biweekly Report. Let's get started. Approved for construction in 2017 and reauthorized at the 2021 town meeting, the Kingston Road Improvement Project to improve pedestrian and bicyclist safety will finally be underway next week. To learn more, we spoke with DPW Director Stephen Cronin. The town of Exeter is working with the New Hampshire Department of Transportation to enhance pedestrian and bike safety on Kingston Road. The project is being put forward with funding support from the New Hampshire DOT's Transportation Alternatives Program, TAP for short. The program is used to provide choices for non-motorized users that are safe, reliable, and convenient. We spoke to Stephen Cronin to learn more about the goals of this project.
The goal of the Kingston Road Improvement Project is to improve vehicle, pedestrian, and bike safety on Kingston Road from the bridge over the Little River to Pickpocket Road. So the project's going to include widening the shoulders on both sides of the road for about a mile stretch. It's also going to include installation of a new 5-foot wide bioretention swale along Kingston Road to improve drainage and help infiltrate stormwater back into the ground.
Sidewalks will be extended along the south side of the road to Tamarin Lane from where they currently end at the Little River closer to downtown, adding approximately 3,000 feet of new sidewalks. The project will also add an enhanced pedestrian crossing at the intersection of Kingston Road, Riverwoods Drive, and White Oak Drive. Work is scheduled to begin on April 15th and is expected to last around 4 months. To stay up to date with this and other public works projects, head to the town website and subscribe to the town's email newsletter. Exeter experienced a partial solar eclipse earlier this week. Gabe Perez and I went out to document the event in downtown Exeter. We also ask Exeter residents to send in their photos and experiences of the eclipse in town or wherever they viewed it. Beth Diamond and friends gathered in Swasey Parkway to watch the event with eclipse-themed snacks and the eclipse captain, Barbara Remkunis of the Exeter Historical Society. Anna Grazier, resident and chocolate maker, traveled to St. George, Quebec with her family to experience the eclipse in the path of totality. Michaela Daly-Doloff described the eclipse as surreal and amazing to see in totality as she watched from Bingham, Maine. The sky was so darkened that the streetlights came on. A huge thanks to everyone who sent in photos, and another huge thanks to Finance Director Corey Stevens for sharing an extra pair of eclipse glasses with Gabe and I so we could experience the wonders of the eclipse ourselves. Turning attention back to Earth's surface, April 22nd is Earth Day this year, and to help Exeter prepare, Public Works and the Planning and Sustainability Office are teaming up to host an Earth Week roadside cleanup. Will Tapley has more.
Exeter's gearing up for Earth Day 2024. The Planning and Sustainability Office, alongside the Department of Public Works, calls for community action in the annual Earth Day roadside litter cleanup campaign. From April 15th to April 21st, volunteers can pick up free trash bags, gloves, and safety vests at the Public Works office, or on April 20th at the Town Hall from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Drop off your filled trash bags at the transfer station or notify Public Works for pickup. And thank you for helping our town in celebrating Earth Day.
At the 2024 town election, voters approved 2 zoning amendments to streamline standards and processes related to mixed-use development and accessory dwelling units. Gabe Perez met up with town planner Dave Sharples to learn more.
In the town of Exeter, there are rules and regulations regarding the way we're able to build and expand developments and housing that don't affect other systems. One of these developments is known as the MUND, where we apply housing to infrastructure that already exists. In the most recent town election, voters voted to change the way these such rulings were worded, to allow continued development of places such as the MUND, which would cover the C1 and the WC, which mostly covers downtown Exeter and a small portion off of Lincoln Street. The town planner, Dave Sharples, explains these changes.
Right now, our current zoning restricts the number of units you can build on a lot. There's like 3 limiting factors to development with housing, and it's either height, it includes height, parking, and density. You bump up into one or the other before you hit the other one. Those are the limiting factors that we left in place and removed density. So it does increase some density opportunities in areas where the MUND exists, where infrastructure exists to support it. So what was done to the residential conversions, which allows conversion up to any single family home into 4 units. That has been townwide for, well before I got here, for many years. We found that they were a little bit contradictory to the ADU statute that allows 1 additional, and actually getting an ADU is a little more stricter than a conversion, which didn't make sense. You can add more units with less restrictions than you can by adding 1. The accessory dwelling unit provisions were changed to streamline the process, be more consistent with the goal of the state to create housing using this tool. The existing process prior to the vote was that it required a special exception. So you had to go through land use boards to build one. We removed that requirement because it was identified by the state as being one of the largest impediments to them being built. Yeah, I think the MUND is a valuable tool to increase Exeter's housing stock in a financially responsible and sustainable way. It's more fiscally responsible and it's more sustainably responsible.
If you'd like more information regarding land use regulation and development, zoning, and other town infrastructural information, you can visit the town website at exeternh.org.
And finally, we captured the 2024 Lit Fest last weekend and have this recap.
The Exeter Lit Fest had its most exciting year yet last weekend. Famous authors from all over came to speak at the historic Exeter Town Hall and give fans insight into their art. The downstairs presentations included talks from authors like Ilyan Wu and Andre Debus III, while the upstairs presentations included Exeter High School students reading their poetry and a guide on how to write a children's book. The full videos of the downstairs presentations will be released weekly on our Exeter TV YouTube page every Wednesday. Visit our YouTube page to see the first video up now.
That does it for this week's report. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to help us spread the word. And head over to the town website to subscribe to the town's email newsletter to get this show and other town news sent straight to your inbox. We'll be back on April 26th for the next edition of the show. For Exeter TV, I'm Bob Glowacki, and this has been the Exeter Biweekly Report. Have a good weekend, Exeter. Thank you
For this week's
tuning in to
report.
Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Okay, welcome back. Good evening, Exeter. Good evening to my colleagues on the board. Good evening to respective town staff, those in attendance, and certainly those watching at home this evening. And welcome to our April 15th, 2024 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. I apologize that we are about 8 minutes behind. We had 4 board interviews, but more importantly, we were having audio difficulties, and I want to give a lot of credit to our Exeter TV colleagues who are here this evening because they came through big. We will be able to proceed with Zoom. You will be able to hear us. And again, thank you to Bob Glowacki and Gabe for making this happen, and it was worth the 8 minutes that we're starting late. And then there were 3. We have 2 board members who unfortunately have conflicts this evening. Our clerk, Selectwoman Julie Gilman. Selectwoman Belanger, I'm going to ask if you would be the clerk this evening. Serve as a clerk.
Happy to do it.
And our vice chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan, also had an unavoidable conflict. However, we do have a quorum with the 3 of us, and I'd like to introduce to my right, Selectman Dan Chartrand. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
And to my left, Selectwoman Nancy Belanger. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Our town manager, Mr. Russ Dean. Good evening.
Good evening.
We also have our assistant town manager, Melissa Roy, here. Good evening. And our recording secretary, Joanna Bartel. Good evening, Joanna. My name is Nico Papakosendis, and we will start right in. The next item on the agenda this evening is public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to come up and weigh in with any comments to the board. We do ask that if your comments are applicable to an agenda item, that you wait till that agenda item comes up. With that, I will pause for a moment, see if there's any public comment. And we do not have anybody on Zoom. I do have a proclamation to read this evening. In celebration of Arbor Day, which takes place next Monday, April 22nd, 2024, and in celebration of Earth Day and Arbor Day next Monday, the Tree Committee will be planting trees at Kids Park, and we're excited for that. And I will be there, and any board members or any members of the public wish to attend. It'll be fun. But here we have the Town of Exeter, New Hampshire proclamation in the year of our Lord 2024, Arbor Day, April 22nd, 2024. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Nico Papakosendis, Select Board Chair, the Town of Exeter, do hereby proclaim the 22nd of April, 2024 as Arbor Day in the Town of Exeter. And I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day by supporting efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generation, dated this 22nd of April, 2024. We do not have any formal recognitions. However, I would like to take a moment to recognize a dear colleague and a friend who will be retiring at the end of this week, Chief Eric Wilking, of the Exeter Fire Department. Chief, you've had an impressive 40-plus year career, the last 20 of which have been with the Town of Exeter. And the legacy that you've built, particularly in the last 5, I think will be reflective in the fire department in years and years ahead of us. The culture that that you have grown, the improvements that you've made, the morale that you've built up, and the diversity that you've built within the department as chief is second to none. Personally, you and I first started working together about 8 or 9 years ago. I was on the Budget Recommendations Committee, and I chaired that for several years. And we've come a long way. We've come a long way, and I think that when we look at how well we work together, if somebody had choreographed that for us 8 years ago, I think we both would have laughed and walked away. But upon being appointed chair of the Select Board in 2020, one of the first things that we did was to name you the chief upon Brian Como's retirement. It was a time of extreme turmoil in the world as COVID-19 had struck. And for the next year and a half, we saw each other on Zoom every week. You provided this community with an update on all of the work that you and your department, the police department, health officer were doing, not just in keeping us safe, but offering the vaccines, working so vigorously to make sure that our seniors and our children were vaccinated. I can't say enough of the work that you did for this community, not just in those 5 years, but in your 20 years. We developed a close working relationship, too, during COVID, and it's continued. You've come to our select board meetings. It's nice to meet with you for our quarterly meetings. And I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you tremendously. I'm going to miss working with you. I'm going to miss seeing you here. And I just wish you and Linda the happiest of health in your retirement. Congratulations. You've earned this. Congratulations on a 40-plus year career. And on a personal note, Eric, I always call you Chief, but right now I'm going to call you Eric. I'm privileged to call you my friend. Thank you very much.
Russ and the board, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure to serve the town, and I too will leave with mixed emotions, as you can imagine. It has been a lot of fun. This is a beautiful little town, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
And you better come back and visit.
Occasionally.
Mr. Chair, could I just offer two very particular things that I appreciate about Chief Wilking? The first is you brought a deft political touch to the job of being chief, and I really do appreciate that. It was something that maybe wasn't always there previously, and I think the passing of the public safety facility had a lot to do with your ability to bring that political touch. It was very deft, and I'm very appreciative. And the second thing, which is far more important, is the way you've focused on not just physical health amongst the fire corps, but you've really, this means a lot to me because mental health is a really important thing. And you've really allowed a culture of mental health to flourish there. And that may be your lasting legacy. So thank you for that.
Thank you for recognizing me.
Yep.
I'm just going to say here to both of what they said, because we could be here all night with all that you've done and contributed to our community. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Chief, you'll hear more from me on Friday, but
I imagine there's more to come on Friday.
I want
I'll
to
be
thank
there.
you. I want to thank you as well, and it's been a pleasure working with you over the years, and you've done a magnificent job as chief of the department, an assistant chief before that, and want to express my gratitude to you for your great work over the years. So thank you very much.
And I'll never forget that you and I started pretty much the same time.
Yeah.
You were named town manager, and quickly I was named assistant fire chief. So thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you all 19 years.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Forgive me, I lost my place.
We're going
That's
to do
okay.
meeting minutes.
At this time, I would like to ask the board to review the Exeter Select Board regular meeting minutes of April 1st, 2024. First, ask if there are any amendments or revisions.
I have none.
And I have none.
Okay, and seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Exeter Select Board regular meeting minutes of April 1st, 2024.
So moved.
And I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you. We have an appointment, or a reappointment, rather, this evening. Mr. Dean, could you just walk us through Deputy Fire Chief Fritz's reappointment and explain his role as the Assistant Health Officer?
Sure. So this is the Deputy Health Officer appointment. The Deputy Health Officer reports to the Health Officer, acts in the Health Officer's stead when they are unavailable, and also has their legal authority under RSA 128. And so Deputy Fritz serves as our Deputy Health Officer in the organization.
And this is done annually?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Any questions or comments? No. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to renew the appointment of Deputy Fire Chief Jason Fritz as the Deputy Health Officer in the town of Exeter, for the 2024 year.
So moved.
And a second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you. We do not have any resignations to consider this evening. We're going to jump into our discussion items. I would ask colleagues on the board, we have an individual here. Agenda item D, Mr. John Burns is the Executive Director. He's traveled quite far to be here. He's been here early. His presentation will be brief, and I would ask, in consideration of his time, if we could let him go first,
Yes.
please. Mr. Burns, good evening.
Good evening.
If you could step up to the microphone and introduce yourself, thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Burns. I'm the Executive Director for SOS Recovery Community Organization. We are a peer-based recovery community organization that has been in existence since 2016. So we started with our first recovery center in Rochester, New Hampshire. We opened a second in Dover in 2017. We opened a third in Hampton in 2019. And that Hampton one, we've been there for 5 years. Where the location hasn't been ideal. So we're planning to relocate to here in Exeter, primarily for a couple different reasons, but the main reason is we've established a relationship with Exeter Hospital. We've had a fee-for-service contract for just over a year where we're on call for the hospital. And they dispatch us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to support patients in the hospital that are struggling with a substance use disorder, and to provide peer-based recovery coaching and recovery supports for individuals who are struggling with substances. So we started that just over a year ago, and that relationship. So we're going to be subletting a location on Portsmouth Ave, which was their EAP program at 92 Portsmouth Ave behind New England Pizza. And so I just wanted to come in and present to the select board, some of our programs and services to make the community aware. And, we met with the chief of police. I've met with the code enforcement officer to make sure we fit all the zoning requirements there, and kind of describe what we do. And it's peer-based services, so we don't do anything clinical. All of our staff are trained. A fair number of them are certified recovery support workers, which is 30 hours worth of education training and 500 hours of practical training. And really what we do is we do a number of different programs. A lot of that is like mutual aid support meetings. We have a family support program, so we have a statewide contract supporting family support groups across the state of New Hampshire, and have some local ones in our centers that we do. We provide parenting programs. We have a nurturing parent program for moms and dads who have young children, who oftentimes they're involved with DCY, with the Department of Children and Youth Services. And it's providing not like your traditional parenting, but more how to balance your recovery from addiction with parenting young children, and a lot of it's just building self-worth and providing them supports that way. We have an opioid abatement contract with the state of New Hampshire, using opioid abatement funds to provide criminal justice supports across the state. And that was one of the other compelling reasons to move to Exeter, being the proximity to Brentwood and the fact that we work within the drug treatment court at Brentwood at Rockingham County. We've been involved in the jail. We're involved in Stratford County Jail, and we're in 5 different drug treatment courts, including the Federal District Court in Concord. So we work providing peer supports to a lot of individuals with criminal justice involvement. We provide a lot of one-on-one peer supports in our centers, and just trying to build community. And one of the central things that we do is to put a positive face on recovery by locating our centers in main street locations within communities. So we're right downtown Dover, Rochester, and we'll be right out here by the hospital on Portsmouth Ave here in Exeter. And we also do some harm reduction programming, so we do provide sterile syringe programs for individuals to reduce transmission of disease and provide them with safer supplies and education around overdose prevention. We do a lot of distribution of naloxone for the state and various other supports, but it's a pretty robust program. We see about 11,000 visits in our Dover and Rochester Center each year. Hampton's been a lot slower, which was another reason we're moving to Exeter. It's without public transportation, access is always an issue, but we feel that proximity to Exeter Hospital will create a lot of referrals back and forth, and we'll be a lot closer to the jail to provide support for folks coming out, re-entering into the community locally. And that's just a little bit about us, and I'll open it up to any questions any of the select board have, or.
Selectman Chartrand.
I'll go first. Speaking of a culture of mental health, welcome to Exeter, and I look forward to you being a member of the business community and the community at large, and thank you for coming here tonight. That's it.
Yeah, I've heard of your organization, obviously, and welcome to the community. You do important work. I'm really glad you have a relationship with the Exeter Hospital, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
And again, welcome to Exeter. We're happy that you've decided to come here. When is the anticipated move?
Next week.
Terrific. All right.
We're moving pretty quickly, yeah.
All right.
It took a while to get the lease in place because it's a sublet,
Yeah.
but yeah, we're hoping to move everything out of Hampton. Our lease ends at the end of this month, so we're hoping to do it over the weekend, next weekend, and be open on the 22nd. So.
And
Don't know if internet will be working or anything like that because it's a move, so we'll see.
Okay.
And just so folks know where you are, you're right near New England Pizza. Same.
Right, yeah, we're on the back side, essentially.
Yep. Awesome.
So, yeah, we're in that same strip, so. And I forgot to mention, we also own a restaurant, so in summer, we opened up a workforce development social enterprise project to help where the revenue could support our organization long-term. But primarily as a workforce development tool to hire people in recovery and coming out of incarceration. So we have a small diner in Somersworth, New Hampshire that employs 12 people. And
Now
we do
that I hadn't
breakfast and
heard of.
lunch.
That's wonderful.
Name folded, yeah. So that's our 4th location, I should say.
Terrific.
So,
Wow, that's great.
thank you.
Well, welcome. Thank you for coming
Thank
to
you.
meet us this evening, and open communication between the board and Mr. Dean. If there's
Yep.
anything we can do, let us know.
All right, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, moving back to our discussion items. First item this evening is our Public Works Director, Mr. Steve Cronin, with an update on the Squamscott River Cipher Project. Welcome back.
Mr. Chair. So we've been in contact with the town manager's office, and I know they've kept you apprised of some of the progress we've made, but I'm here tonight to provide an update. We've run into some issues in the project that are going to result in some delays. But for the benefit of the audience and the people at home, I'd like to run through a timeline of events and kind of
Please.
explain what's happened and what the next steps are. So just after the first of the year, work started on the second 12-inch siphon barrel. This work was to consist of drilling a 6-inch pilot hole from Swasey Parkway to a receiving hole at Exeter Mills on the other side of the river. That pilot hole would then be reamed with a 12-inch ream to enlarge it, followed then by an 18-inch ream to enlarge it further, and then a new siphon pipe would be pulled from the mill side back to the parkway. Once that was completed, additional construction would happen that would connect the two pipes together. And we had an expected completion date of June of '24. Unfortunately, we've run into, as I said, a few issues that are going to impact that initial plan and delay the project a little bit further. So to begin with, as I said, drilling of the pilot hole began on January 6th. That pilot hole was successfully completed on February 8th, which took about 23 calendar days. On February 14th, the 12-inch reaming was initiated. That work went rather seamlessly, continued over 14 days, and was completed on February 28th. The following day, February 29th, we started the 18-inch ream. Again, this work proceeded as planned. It was anticipated to take about 3 weeks to complete that work. On March 19th, we had a scheduled progress meeting with our contractor. Progress had slowed a little bit on the reamer, but we were still advancing as we had planned. Based on the progress of the second ream and some soil and ledge that had been encountered during drilling and reaming, the contractor had expressed an interest in possibly conducting a third 22-inch ream after the 18-inch ream was completed. However, later that day, we were notified that one of the drilling rods on the Parkway side had disconnected from the 18-inch reamer. At that point, the reamer had traveled about 500 feet from the entry point on Swasey, but it was eventually determined that the cause of the disconnection was a weld failure that had happened about 160 feet from the drill rig. Several attempts were made over the next 3 days to try to recouple the drill rods, but those were all unsuccessful, unfortunately. On March 22nd, a decision was made to attempt to push the reamer back to Swasey from the mill side using 8-inch steel casing and an air hammer. So on March 23rd, the contractor began the process of mobilizing the air hammer and installing the 8-inch steel casing. On March 27th, the casing made contact with the reamer, and we began pushing the reamer back towards the Parkway. We made some pretty good progress, but unfortunately, on April 2nd, a weld on the 8-inch casing broke. We were able to excavate where that break was, repair the casing, and additional attempts were made to push the reamer back and recapture the drill rods, all of which ultimately were unsuccessful. So following discussions that we've had with the driller, the contractor, and our consultants, we've determined that our best course of action at this point is to abandon the reamer in place and proceed with a new borehole. Excuse me. We're gonna look at making some minor horizontal and vertical adjustments to the drilling location based on the information we've gathered during the last drill that we attempted. This work could begin as early as April 29th. This is the route we decide to go. And based on that start date, we anticipate substantial completion by the middle of August, and total completion by the end of August. So that's where we're at this point. We have a meeting scheduled with our contractor and consultants on Wednesday afternoon to try to finalize the location of the new borehole and some of the other details. The contractor would like to bring in a larger drill with larger diameter drill rods because they think that will help avoid some of the breakage that they've encountered on the last hole. So available for any questions that you might have, and really hoping for some success on this project.
Two quick questions, either for you or Mr. Dean. The first of which is, will this be covered under the lump sum agreement that the town negotiated last summer?
Yes, the drilling of another hole will be covered by the contract.
So no additional cost to the town?
On that front, no.
Okay. And have we notified all of the abutters?
I defer to Steve on that.
So we've been in contact with them. We're still trying to work out the details and figure out exactly where the new location is going to be. There's a lot to work out.
Sure.
There's going to be probably some additional property impacts, impacts to trees. So we haven't been able to give them a lot of information, unfortunately, but we'll get that out as quickly as we have it.
Okay.
As I said, we hope to have some of those details ironed out by Wednesday afternoon.
Understood. I think if we can just make a very, very good conscious effort to make sure that all of the abutters are given as much information as soon as we possibly can. Obviously, particularly some abutters more than others have endured, quite a lengthy interruption of life.
True.
And they've been incredibly patient, and I think that we need to be as transparent as we can be. And then I would also ask if there's going to be some trees or any other manipulation done to the actual parkway that the Swasey Park trustees are given notice or discussion is had with them.
Absolutely.
Great.
So a few things I'd like to note. As the weather has warmed up here, the heater is not going to be needed for the next round of drilling. So that has been a large source of the noise. So that won't be a problem moving forward. We haven't finalized exactly the means and methods of drilling. So we don't know. We can't speak to whether it will be any quieter or noisier than it was in the first go-around. We anticipate that it's going to be, at least the drilling operation itself will be about the same, but again, we're still working on that. So, we're aware of all the events that are planned. We've made arrangements for the farmers market. We know there are other things on Swasey coming up over the course of the season, so those will all be part of the discussions on Wednesday, and we'll do our best to accommodate them as they had done last year.
Okay. Any questions, Selectwoman Belanger?
I have none at this point. Thank you.
Selectman Chartrand?
I mean, we didn't really talk about the mill, but obviously you're in close contact with them constantly, right?
Yeah, they've been invited to all the progress meetings, and we'll continue to do our best to get the information out. We know that every once in a while there's a gap and somebody may not get notified, but we'll endeavor to make sure that we're getting that out as best.
And then on the Swasey Parkway side, obviously the senior housing.
Yep.
That's critical as well.
One thing to consider, last summer, the interim director, assistant town manager, and I actually went to the mills, and we scheduled just a get-together with the residents there. We had great attendance, and it was very informative for them, but it was also very informative for us so that we could hear their concerns. We could hear some of the things that they're going through on a day-to-day basis. And I know, the feedback that we got is they were appreciative that we went out to listen to their concerns, answer their questions. And I know the three of us walked away feeling a lot more comfortable with what they've actually been going through. So I would suggest that once you know what you're going to do and what the plan is, and I'm more than happy to go out with you, maybe schedule something. It was in the early evening, but they've got a really nice facility, a nice room, and I think if we can go out there and just let them know what the plan is, hear their concerns, answer their questions, I think that would go a long way.
You might want to consider doing that at senior housing as well.
Yep, we'll do that anywhere.
Yeah. Because they were right there as well, on the Swasey side. It's unfortunate that this has happened, but we've known all along that it's an extremely complex project, and this is just one more thing. But I want to say that we're going to get this done. We are going to get this done, and it's going to be delivered at the cost that we talked about last year. And it's a vital piece of our sewer system. Absolutely. And we're determined.
So maybe you could work out with Assistant Manager Roy, and we can get 277 water in the mills and go out on the road.
We'll get that scheduled.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, can I say one more?
Of course.
I'm so relieved you're here. It was harder to do this without you, Steve.
And I know you're real good about keeping the board updated, but if we could, Mr. Dean, and you can even do it via Zoom, if we could just have our, updates through the course of this like we did last year.
Yes.
I think that goes a long way as well. As much as we can get out to the public in a timely fashion.
Yes.
That's got to be a priority, okay?
We will.
Great.
Make it a priority. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to call for the Swasey Park trustees who are going to join the select board. And I think they're all three are here, and we'll give them a moment to call their meeting to order. And their nameplates are there.
Okay, I will convene the meeting of the Swasey Parkway trustees at 7:38. Good evening, Mr. Chair and select board members. Exeter, thank you for having us. And we look forward to the discussion tonight.
Terrific, thank you. I think we last met in November. One of the things that, when the warrant article passed several years ago, the select board made a commitment to work with the trustees. I know I work as the select board rep to the trustees, so I'm at most of your meetings, but from time to time, we thought it was important to have co-meetings as we sort of work through our next steps. I think the year prior, we had a citizens petition. Obviously, the Siphon project has, rendered the roadway closed anyway. But when we last met in November, we talked about some different ideas that we may have, but agreed that maybe we should revisit this in spring, given that during the course of the winter, the Siphon project would still be underway. We're now given an unexpected blow that it'll be delayed even further. However, I think it's important that we reconvene and start to move forward. One of the topics I wanted to discuss this evening was working towards coming up with multiple options. I know at one point we talked about a turnaround. I know at another point we had one of our volunteers on the planning board had put together a very thoughtful design that we had looked at. But I think before we go to the public, between the select board and the trustees, if we can come up with a way to present to the public 3 or 4 different options that we may consider, and then moving forward with several 3 to 4 public hearings to get public input and just try to make this as inclusive as possible. We've heard from both sides. There are folks in this town that would like to see the whole roadway closed. Some want it open one way. The roadway has been discontinued from point A to point B, and I think that the consensus between the select board working with the trustees is we have the discontinued road. Let's try to find the best way possible to work within that warrant article without taking up any green space, and also making it as easy as we can for folks that may have mobility issues to come in. So with that, by way of introducing the discussion item this evening, Mr. Dean, you and I have met with Assistant Town Manager Roy, and we've talked about several ways we can go about achieving this, and I know you've got a couple thoughts this evening to share.
Yeah, so we've had discussions about this item, the Assistant Town Manager, the Public Works Director, myself, and we feel like a coherent approach to the issue would be to go out and hire a design consultant and actually have somebody look at there have been several different issues that have been noted, including ADA, the turnaround, parking, stormwater, gates, and fencing as examples of those issues. So we really feel like there needs to be a holistic approach to the parkway in general. It is one of our most sensitive areas of town. We know that. People enjoy talking about it. They enjoy walking it. They enjoy the parkway as a jewel of the community. So we think the right way to do this is to go about the way that we've suggested, which is, again, hiring a design consultant to come in and create some options for the town to be able to digest and make decisions on over the next several months. So,
Chair Staples, could I throw it to the trustees for comment or questions?
Sure, but first I neglected to introduce the rest of the board. So to my right is Darius Thompson as the vice chair, and to my left is Dave Short. He is a member of the Board of Trustees. I'm going to actually open it up first to either of the other trustees to comment on this.
Please.
I'll go to Dave. Go.
Dave?
The way I read it in the packet was that if you went the route of the design consultant, town staff was going to work with this consultant, or the consultant was going to come up with 3 conceptuals, then work with the town staff to distill that down to 2.
right.
And then then at that point bring it to the trustees to actually take a look at for the first time. Shouldn't we be involved from the beginning?
So that can be done. This was an original proposal that we got back in December. It's not anything that has been approved or signed off on. It was a draft proposal that we were evaluating at the time, so.
And the other thing I have a concern about too is the degree of infrastructure improvement taking place. Whether we like it or not, I think the past couple months have shown us with the flooding that's taken place there, that's going to have to be addressed, and to sink significant money into infrastructure improvements and not protect what's already there. In particular, those pin oak trees. Now we get the largest pin oak in New Hampshire down there, and how many times can they be submerged in brackish water before it starts to kill them?
Mm-hmm.
So I agree that there's a kind of a holistic approach that needs to be taken, but I think maybe use that as a menu and pull like the obvious things like a turnaround, where the gates should go, what the gates should look like. But if there's accessibility issues, to address that and enhance those entry points. But to go much beyond that before some kind of decision's made on the flooding that's taking place down there, you're kind of throwing good money after bad, maybe.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. And just to be, everything that's in the packet tonight, I mean, nothing has been agreed. This is a discussion item.
Right.
These are just ideas to share with you and perhaps move forward. So, and everything that's in the packet, nothing has been, agreed upon.
Right.
This is just the homework that we've done to bring to the three of you to have this discussion. So,
Yeah.
just so that folks at home are clear.
Yeah. No. It looks very nice. I just want to. Every time that floods, I cringe at what it's potentially doing to those trees.
And it's only going to happen more often.
So one of the goals, I'm sorry, Dan.
No, I was just saying it's not going to stop, so.
Yeah, I was just going to say that as part of this proposal, one of the bullet points under it states of particular importance to the design would be promote resiliency and reduce impacts from flooding. So that is one of the elements that would be addressed in the
So that's in the scope of the work.
In the scope, yes.
That's great.
And Mr. Short, to your point too, I mean, this, and I agree with you, I think that, Mr. Dean, we could revise our idea to include the trustees before whittling it down to 2 options, 3 options. I think if we receive 3 or 4, 5 conceptual designs, we can have another open meeting with the trustees. I mean, I think to keep you included in all those conversations is positive. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, sorry.
Well, I want to reiterate what I said at the last meeting. I'm determined to find the right solution, and I'm determined to do it in a way that finds consensus amongst the trustees and the select board. This is not our way or the highway. This is how do we, the 8 of us, find consensus.
With public input.
With public input,
Yep.
and and accommodating all the disparate things that the voters have asked us to accommodate when they approved that. Was it 3 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah, and Jen Martell brought this up, with one of the overarching themes being not only being concerned about, climate change and flooding and all that, but being sensitive to the original design intent of that parkway.
Yeah.
Correct.
That always needs to be kept in mind.
Agreed.
And being as gentle with it as possible.
And that conception that we were kind of kicking around was not doing that. That's how I read Jen's memo.
What's that?
That's how I read Jen's memo.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
There were certainly areas of improvement. That was a first swing
Yeah.
It was a
To start a conversation.
yeah, it was a great example.
going.
It was a great example of a citizen stepping forward on their own with no compensation and saying, "Hold up, have you thought about this?"
With the expertise to actually speak to it.
Yeah, it was brilliant, and I'm so grateful to Jen, and it really allowed me to say, "Oh yeah, this will never fly."
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful to her, and thank you, Jen. But again, we have to find consensus among the 8 of us, and we have to have vigorous public input because we want all the ideas, and then we have to try to enact what the voters of the town have asked us to do.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. And to get some expertise is a great idea.
I'm fine for now.
So, Mr. Thompson.
And the, just hypothetical about your design consultant that comes in and looks at all options. And if the design consultant recommends that the road be reestablished with things to mitigate the safety issues and concerns in a way that the parkway is still a parkway, not just a road that's been discontinued from point A to point B, that's just a road, it's not a parkway. Is that something that the board is open to if that was a recommendation of the design consultant to actually reconsider the steps necessary to reopen the road so that it has travel from one direction to another direction that mitigates the impact to the green space or improvements that can be made? If that's the recommendation that comes out from the design consultant with expertise, is that a potential for consideration, or is it off the board completely?
That's kind of a hypothetical. I don't know if we want to go there right now.
Well, I want to make sure I understand the question. So if we engage a subject matter expert to bring forward 3 to 4 or 5 different conceptual designs based upon the warrant article.
No, based upon
No,
the
but let me-
original intent. Considering the original intent, along with the warrant article, looking at it holistically,
Yeah.
doing both things and say, well, if that conception comes up, one of the recommendations would be to reestablish that road, do something that was presented before that helps mitigate some of the safety issues and addresses that, provides walking. So if that's one of the things that comes up as a recommendation, would that be considered and presented as an option? That's all.
So if I'm understanding you, you're suggesting that the board engage a firm to look at an option that would contradict the will of the voters.
No, I'm saying you're engaging the firm, and if they look at it holistically, the original design intent, along with what the warrant article was, and one of the recommendations says, well, the best design would actually be to reestablish this and do that. As an example, as a recommendation from your expert, would the board consider that?
Can I take a swing at this?
Sure.
I think you're getting ahead of yourself, Darius. I think we hire the professionals, and we don't try to preconceive this. We don't do hypotheticals. We let them do their work. And then I've always felt strongly that if I'm paying an expert for advice, I'm a fool if I don't listen to that advice. So that's my answer to your question. But to go drill down and be so specific with a hypothetical, I don't think it's helpful right at this moment.
I'm not trying to be divisive or anything else. I'm just asking.
Let's wait and see what the experts say. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
But I always listen to expert advice that I or a body that I belong to has paid for. So that's my answer.
That's fine. That's all I was asking for, is that if that came up as a recommendation, would it be considered to be listened to? That's all.
I always listen to
Well, I think
expert
that
advice.
this board has, time and time again, proven that we listen to everything, and we would continue to do so. And where the road has been discontinued by the judge, my understanding from counsel is that this is the body that could work towards, if we were inclined to do so, to continue the road.
Yeah.
However, as Mr. Chartrand alluded, I would have a hard time, unless there was even if there was if there was a recommendation made, we would have to have a lot of public meeting to hear from the voters before I would feel comfortable going against what passed overwhelmingly.
That's all.
Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, that's it.
Mr. Staples.
Okay, do I get a shot at this?
Of course.
All right. I'd like to just take a swing at what Darius was trying to ask, because Jen Martell did come. She presented, her presentation would have been to reopen the road with a lane, a pedestrian lane. That's all. And I think in all fairness, he was just asking if you had a paid person, consultant, say that, would it be considered? But I guess.
I understood what he was asking.
No,
and your reiteration of it is completely square with my understanding
Yep.
of what he was asking.
No.
And my answer remains the same.
No,
It's like, let's not presuppose, let's hire the experts and have them come in.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get a different answer. I just,
But we understood what
okay,
Darius was saying.
okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. My concern is that I would really like to see the first point be the flooding issue that is so predominantly taken over this past winter down there. And it's just not this past winter. It's been getting worse for a lot of years. The brackish water, and this goes back a long time ago, I do have experience taking care of the parkway down there. That brackish water has ruined the turf that's across from the pavilion. We have had soil samples taken down there from Dodge's Agway. He had told us that. There is another tree that's down by Norris Brook. They had a moat around it when they did construction. They pumped brackish water into there. That tree has declined ever since the construction has gone down, has been done. We have some small trees, the watering diapers, they're a great thing that's been invented, but they're full of brackish water now. I've talked with Dave about that. We're going to take those away. So I think it's a noble thing to hire designs, but if we don't address the premier problem, we can design all we want. Mm-hmm. That brackish water is affecting those mature trees, and it has for a number of years. We've had, I've worked with some tree people that have told me that down there since I've been a trustee. So I think in the conversation that needs to be, right up at the top. I understand, we want to make sure that we do the best thing that the voters wanted, and we all need to come to the same consensus, or within pretty close to the same consensus. But I really would like to see that put as a number one issue for any type of design work down there. And I don't have an answer as to, right. That's an engineering thing, or, how high do we build a wall? We look at the 25, what supposedly the 25-year mark, the 100-year mark. I don't have a great answer for that, but I just want to say that personally, and from a landscape person, I think that should be the highest priority. So.
So the first step really should be minimizing or the flooding, and then come up with designs, because until we get the flooding under control, designs are a waste of money at this point.
Well, how do we protect what we have, number
Right,
one?
yes.
And then if you want to add new plantings down there and you know, and designs, you know, keep the roadway, add a turnaround, add some other amenities down there. Are we kind of throwing good money after bad?
Yeah.
One other thing with that's an issue that we brought up at our meetings before, is that the fence needs to be fixed. But again, looking at some of the innovative environmental things that we can do, using coconut husk or other things to build that up, what's the best recommendation that we can, to ensure that the parkway's still there? And then look at your different options. But the high tides and cycles, it's just going to continue. The river's not going to get any deeper. Water flow is going to continue to come through, so that's more important, I think, than a turnaround or other options.
We might want to consider money that could go towards a design that primarily deals with new infrastructure, and instead maybe put that money towards dealing with an engineering firm to some degree to start getting a handle on what we're going to face, you know, as far as dealing with this goes. Because the water level is already coming up at least 2 to 3 feet above, you know, it's a foot below the top of the fence when it floods the highest. So that's going to be the lowest possible you can go with the wall, and then the water level is only going to get higher over the years. So are we talking a 4-foot high wall to contain it for the next 25 years? Are we talking a 5-foot high wall to contain it for 40 years? But get somebody with some expertise in this sort of thing. And do we even want to contain, which in effect would be what we were doing if we built a wall there. We're containing that water because it wants to go somewhere. And we could create a domino effect on other property by forcing the water level up. You know, some funds need to be directed towards studying that too.
So to that end, Mr. Dean, I know we've had conversations over the last year with engaging Public Works. Can you?
We can have that conversation. That sounds like a separate engineering study to me, in terms of how we might approach that issue. But if it's a priority that the board sees as a priority, we can certainly have that conversation.
Well, and to the point that if you keep it out of there, it's just going to go somewhere else. It should be very holistic. Right. Some of your most valuable property in your tax base is going to be at risk if you raise the wall there, both the mill and some of the downtown buildings. So it really should be a very holistic thing that we do. You know, it's like, can we have the boat ramp there? Or is that going to be the place where the water comes through?
Yeah, I mean, that could very easily be a CIP item.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And it might be a CIP item with a bullet, you know, going up the charts, because we've seen significant flooding. This, and not just in Swasey Parkway, definitely in Swasey Parkway, but also, there have been buildings that have been flooded on their backside facing the river. Again, very valuable property. If we build up this side and push the water over to the mill, then you're, again, risking very valuable property. So you really have to look at the whole, for lack of a better word, the whole floodplain right there. And that's a different matter than what to do about Swasey Park. It's great that it's in the scope of the work, but it's probably a bigger thing that goes beyond the scope of this project.
The way it's described here, I would say absolutely yes.
Yeah. But yeah, we can do more than one thing at a time.
yes, you can.
If I may, one other thing just to consider further downstream is the wastewater treatment. Make sure that that's high enough. If you build this up here, it needs to go somewhere, so we just want to make certain, as a resident, I'd want to make certain that we want to look a little further downstream to ensure that that's taken care of so we don't have any other environmental impacts.
So I'm feeling a great deal of relief right now because I've been debating whether to put our Public Works Director on the spot, but he's off to do it himself.
Volunteer.
So, without getting too far ahead, Wednesday, we are participating in a climate change vulnerability assessment with New Hampshire DES, and they are going to be looking at both water and wastewater assets as part of that assessment. I don't know the full scope of the work yet. It's just an initial meeting, but I imagine that some of these questions are probably going to come up as part of that, and we hope to have more information for you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a quick question? And again, and if you don't know the answer, that's fine. To your point, we can do more than one thing at a time. If we were to engage, to engage an engineering firm to look at this just as a preliminary investigation, not the actual construction of anything, about what would that cost, ballpark? If you don't know, you don't know. Okay.
I couldn't even comprehend what that number might be yet. I think it's probably the right approach, but I would caution you that, when you get into constructing walls and trying to hold back the Atlantic Ocean, it can get very costly very quickly and potentially be cost prohibitive. So I think it would make sense to look at it as part of the scope and probably to separate the two things.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree with Selectman Chartrand that it's more than just looking at trying to keep the water out of Swasey Parkway, because where does that water go? The boathouse, Newfields Road, the highway department.
Come right around the boathouse and flood the parkway anyway.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Well, it's correct, but
You'll find this level.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. But and again, I think it's something that we need to look at, and my opinion is it should be high on the list. That's all. How do we attempt to handle it? We're never going to handle it totally.
Right. Before Ambrose Swasey donated that land to us.
Yeah, I know.
And it was a swamp. It was part of the Squamscott River.
Yeah, it was a dump.
It was backwater. Yeah. So it's a jewel.
Yeah.
But before it was a jewel, it was where the water went.
Well, nature's going to take it back.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
So we can maybe delay that, but we're probably not going to stop the inevitable. Yeah. Anyways, sorry.
We can try.
Yeah, we can try. Got off on a little.
Can minimize.
I'll get off the soapbox.
No, I think it's a good.
It's a good conversation.
It's a good parallel conversation to have.
Yep.
And we can have both.
We can do more than one thing at a time.
So at the very least, we'll be interested as a board to hear.
Get a revised scope.
How Wednesday's assessment goes. Just on a separate matter.
Separate track.
And if that needs to be accelerated as a CIP, then it's something we consider during budget season.
Okay.
And then coming back to this.
So I was going to ask, Mr. Chair, any other comments or questions from the trustees on the actual discussion item?
No, I did talk with the highway director tonight about the siphon project and some of the challenges with that. So, and I've received a call in regards to some of the challenges. So we'll wait and see what we have for our Wednesday night meeting.
Bring it back to the board for any questions or comments. Selectwoman Belanger?
Other than waiting for an update, I think I'm done here for the conversation at this point. So I think that's important.
I just appreciate the trustees of Swasey Park committing to a process of trying to find the best solution that meets all those different criteria. And And I think getting professional advice, while ultimately it may be foolhardy because of the other issue we talked about,
Right.
I think it's the right thing to do right now to try to move us forward, because the siphon project will be over, and we will have to respond to what the voters voted and what we all are trying to accomplish. So I like the idea of getting some professional advice.
Can we or somebody designated from our group be involved with this design expert from the very beginning? I mean, from the letter of agreement forward?
Yeah, I mean, I envision if we were to go ahead and engage Ironwood, they would be working with town staff, presumably,
Yes.
with a member of the select board perhaps sitting in on some of the meetings and
Member of the trustees or the trustees?
Yeah, maybe one each.
Okay.
is that
We don't want to
acceptable?
burden the professionals with 8 of us. That doesn't seem like a good idea. But
No.
one each,
Yeah,
2 of us?
I think that would make.
Is
I
that
think
an acceptable
I think
approach
that
to
would
the
make sense.
trustees?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
Am I getting, is the will of the board this evening to move forward with retaining Ironwood at this time, or do we want to hit pause?
Can we wait until all 5 of us are here, or at least 4?
Of course, we can do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
and
would be my instinct.
Okay.
I'd like to wait for all of us, but also to see what happens with this meeting. Give
So
an update.
would you all like to be invited back when we bring this back up?
I would.
Always happy to.
What are your
You
feelings?
can go as our representative.
I mean, this configuration is great,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So if we keep replicating this each time we take this up, I'm very comfortable with that, because that's our commitment, to do this as the 8 of us, not the 5 of us.
We've made that commitment, and I think this collaboration with this board and with the 3 of you as trustees, we've really built a strong team of collaboration.
Yeah,
Not
that-
always agreeing, but it's been respectful.
Well, and that's okay. You know, like I've said before, we just try to work for a compromise that fits for everybody. And I think we've done that so far. So, yes, it seems like we'd be interested in coming back.
Sometime in May, Mr. Dean?
Sounds good.
We have
Could be May 13th or
May 28th,
28th.
Tuesday.
yeah.
Do you have a preference?
Let's do the 28th, because that'll be after our May meeting then.
Correct.
Yes, the day after
So May
Memorial Day.
28th?
Yeah.
That'd be perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Motion?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we adjourn at 8:11. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
The board received a request last week from Lynette Batt, who's the program director with the Trust for Public Lands, and we've met her several times, I think since December, regarding the Rugg property. And Lynette asked to be on the agenda this evening to give the board an update and talk about next steps, perhaps. And I know we have her on Zoom. Lynette, can you hear us?
She texted me that the room is on mute, so she can't hear you all.
Oh, okay.
Knock
So
on the
maybe
door.
Gabe
Yeah,
can
he's
help us
gonna
out
let
with
them know.
that. Thank you for letting me know that.
We're good. Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
Try again.
Lynette, can you hear us?
Okay, there we go. Yes, hello.
Perfect. Good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you all.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, great. And that's to me?
Yes.
Okay, just to check. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks so much for having me back. I think the last I was in front of you was in December. And I don't know if it was mentioned yet because I just got off mute, but Dwayne Hyde is in the room as well. He's the Conservation Director with Southeast Land Trust. And so Dwayne will help if we have any technology issues, or he can help step in with any in-person questions that come up. But really appreciate it, and especially accommodating me remotely. I'm 2.5 hours away, and I get down there a lot, but not for every meeting, unfortunately. I wanted to refer the board to the packet that you have. I don't know if you have it printed in front of you or as a PDF, but our information in your packet starts on page 51 of the PDF. And the memo that I wrote on March 25th is page 54 of the PDF. So I'll be kind of referring back to that. Okay. But just as a very brief reminder of what this agenda item is about and what we're here to talk with you about is the Rugg Property, the proposed Rugg Property purchase, which is about 47 acres of land in Exeter at the northern boundary with Newfields. It's adjacent to Oakland's town forest. And as many of you know, or probably all of you know at this point, this particular property has miles of trails, of existing trails on it, and Exeter residents have been using it for many, many years, not knowing that it's private land, but kind of treating it as an extension of the town forest. And so also, as you know, the landowners are in the position where they're forced to sell this property one way or another to settle a family estate, and they're giving the town the first crack at purchasing it. Otherwise, they're going to look to sell it on the open market and have some development plan for it. So I wanted to give an update to the board on where we stand. And actually, let me go ahead. I'll just quickly share some slides, if that's okay. They're very brief. Okay. Let's see if this works. Okay. Are you all looking at slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me see if I can make those bigger. Okay, wonderful. And so we refer to this project, by the way, as the Newfields Exeter Community Forest because it does span the town boundary between both towns. There's 100 acres in Newfields and 50 acres in Exeter. And so we're referring to it as the Newfields Exeter Community Forest, but a lot of folks know it as the Rugg Property project. So just kind of a quick layout on the map view. I know you all have seen these maps, but to show it again, on the left side is that regional map where towards the bottom of the left side, you have Highway 101, and you've got Henderson Swasey Town Forest to the south, and you've got Oakland's Town Forest to the north. And the part that we're talking about for Exeter to purchase is what's shown in orange on both sides. The right side of the map is a zoom in to kind of show the aerial view of the property. And the right side map, and this was included in your packet, does show the full trail density. I know that was a question we got from the Conservation Commission, and past maps had showed kind of a reduced trail network, but on the right and in your packet is the full trail density that's out there. So there's a lot of trails and a lot of wetlands. So also, as you all know, the project received a really strong vote in March. So it was Article 24, and I just have it up on screen. I know you all are familiar with what the warrant said, but this particular article was for an advisory measure. It was non-fiscal, not a funding measure, as you know, but it was, does the town want to move forward with supporting the project and fundraising? And we were really excited to see a very strong public support of this with 88% of the vote. So in your packet and in the memo that I provided is a more detailed timeline, but just to break it down a little bit more and go really high level, what we're looking at. So with that positive vote, we're moving full steam forward with the project. And so in May and June, we have kind of final grant applications. We applied to some grants last year. We need to reapply this year now that we have the benefit of that positive town vote. And so May and June, next on the docket are grant and loan applications, and that's part of what I'm here to talk with you about tonight. The boundary resolution is also key to that. And then once we come out of that, we're doing final appraisal later this summer or in the fall, more likely. We're going to be doing some of our final other real estate due diligence. We expect to have funding decisions on the grants and the initial loan pre-application, if that's approved to move forward by the select board this fall, late fall. And then we'd also be kind of pursuing the process of public meetings, coming back to the select board, the Conservation Commission, but also having whatever public hearings are necessary to prepare for what we hope to be a funding vote in Exeter in March of 2025. All of this year and all of next year, we'll be continuing with our private fundraising campaign. All of the associated costs of the project, so not the land purchase costs, but all the other costs for the project and to create a stewardship fund, are being privately fundraised. So that's not a request from the town, and I'll show that budget in a second. And then closing, we expect to be summer, fall of 2025. So a little over a year from now, if all goes well and if the funds are raised. So on the boundary issue, that is a key constraint and an issue for this project that's impacting the timeline that I wanted to just bring up today. We, as you all know, the landowners had submitted a fair amount of title and boundary work to the town last July, and we understand the town, wanted the fall to review it. We were hoping to get a better sense by the end of the year, and then we were notified in January there would be an update. We're still waiting for the resolution of that issue, and so it would be a really big help. And one ask to the select board is, if there's any way you can help us move that along, or anything that we can do to help move that along to get to resolution, because that will really help these grant and funding applications, and of course is critical to the appraisal. So let's see. Here we are on the budget. So this is included in the packet as well. I think it might be a little bit further down because I sent it over on Friday. For Exeter, what the budget here and how it's different from the December budget that we presented. This 1.7 million is the maximum land cost. So this is what the landowners have agreed to. It's works out to about 35,000 an acre. This is what the landowners have agreed to as their maximum purchase price. It's 5% over the June 2023 appraisal. There's also a floor price of about 1.5 million. That's 10% under the June 2023 appraisal. So the final price of the land will be determined by a final appraisal hopefully within those brackets. So that's the cost side. Again, that doesn't include associated project costs, due diligence. All of that is being separately fundraised. So to cover the actual land cost, we're looking at 2 different grants, a small amount of other additional funding. And then what I wanted to talk about today, or introduce the idea of, is a town loan for 1.2 million, of which a portion we anticipate would be forgiven. So this is through the Clean Water SRF program that I know Exeter is very familiar with. You all have gotten a number of SRF loans in the past. This is mirroring the funding structure in Newfields. So Newfields last year was recommended for an award of a $2.5 million SRF loan, of which 20% is anticipated to be forgiven. So Newfields, with their positive vote, because they also received a 67% vote yes on their funding measure in March, Newfields is moving forward with that full loan application this year. What we're asking Exeter to consider now is a pre-application, which would be non-committal for the town to proceed with a $1.2 million SRF pre-application, SRF loan pre-application in May. And then it's not committal if the town decides to move forward with the project and votes forward that funding request. That's when we would submit the full application for the SRF loan next year. So that the goal, I want to just kind of pause and emphasize that overall, this is a very conservative budget. our goal is to do better than this and to further reduce the cost to the town. We'd really like to get it at or below 50%. Right now, with these numbers, it works out to probably about a 56% contribution from the town, assuming some loan forgiveness and assuming that the loans or that the grants as shown on this budget come through. But we have some additional sources of funds. Last month, in fact, we applied for a $1.3 million congressional funding request or earmark request, of which $400,000 would be tagged for Exeter. So if that comes through, we're also applying for a little bit higher than what's shown on one of the state grants and other private fundraising. Again, we hope to really be able to reduce and minimize the cost to the town. But to cover what we think may be needed, we wanted to request a loan application at the 1.2 million level. So that's it as far as updates and kind of what we're looking for moving forward. Here's just some quick photos of the property. I'm sure you all have been out on the Fort Rock trails and the town forest trails often, but these are photos from the actual property. And I will go ahead and stop there and see what questions you have. And just to kind of recap, our request is that the select board consider authorizing moving forward with a pre-application for that clean water SRF loan. To do that, you would need to designate an authorized representative to submit the loan application. And then we're also would be asking the select board for some letters of support for the grants. And finally, for help securing resolution of the boundary issue. So let me pause there and see what questions you all may have.
Thank you, Lynette. Before I open it up to questions from my colleagues regarding the due diligence that the Select Board has been conducting, we are presently still in discussions with the Rugg family, and those have been ongoing.
Is that regarding the boundary?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Questions, Selectwoman Belanger?
Could you just clarify the cost per acre right now? And that sounds like that's a varying number, that it can change? So so the actual appraised value or the cost per acre is $35,000. That's what came from the June 2023 appraisal. Then what the landowners have agreed to, and they know that the final purchase price has to be based on a final appraisal done to Yellow Book standards and reviewed. And it's like a three-part review process. It would be by the state funders, the federal funders, as well as the town, and an independent reviewer. So that final appraisal will set the purchase price, but they've agreed to a floor of about 1.47 million and a ceiling of 1.7 million. Thank you.
So just to be clear on that, if the appraisal were to come in higher, say the appraisal comes back and the Exeter allocated portion is 1.9 million, the sales price would still be the ceiling, the 1.724. If the appraisal comes in between the floor and ceiling, then that would be the purchase price. If the appraisal comes back below the floor, the landowners would have the option not to sell the property or to sell at that lower value.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
So my question is either for you, Mr. Chair, or for the town manager, or for some. Are we comfortable moving forward with elements of this property while we are still in discussion with the Ruggs on the boundary issues?
So that's the question I was actually going to ask Mr. Dean, because obviously, ever since Lynette, when you came forward in December, I think the Select Board has shown that, in fact, we are excited by this opportunity. If everything can work out, our voters obviously spoke overwhelmingly that this is a priority, and this board takes our voters' votes incredibly seriously. So
that's our North Star, by the way.
I think the excitement is felt here on the board, and we just need to follow the proper proper procedures. And again, as I said, we're still in discussions with the landowners. But Mr. Dean, is there any reason why we could not move forward with starting the grant application process that would not be binding, if I'm understanding correctly, with some
Right.
letters of support? Is there any reason we would not want to do that?
There's nothing that I can see that would forestall us from doing that.
Well,
So I
let
think
me
we can-
put a finer point on it. Is it wise for us to do that, given that those conversations aren't done yet?
Again, we talked about it earlier tonight. There's sort of two separate paths here. So I think that we could do this, and I don't see any large-scale impediment to doing that.
Like we've done before with other grants. That's why I was asking.
Okay.
Does
I don't think it
anybody-
puts us in
So
it
there's a precedent for that.
We've filed for grants before, right?
many times.
We just did one in October.
And it's okay to do that with the question still up in the air.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, we filed for grants before, obviously, when we weren't the property owner. So in terms of what comes out of this boundary discussion, I think we can move ahead with the process without it impacting that conversation.
And the key to me is that when Lynette said it's not binding, I mean, it's,
Right.
we can walk away from it.
We're also, by the way, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, we're also hoping to hear very soon from the Rugg family on this particular, on the issue of the boundary
Yeah,
adjustment.
And I don't want to ask very specific questions there.
Right.
Obviously, because negotiations should be conducted in private and are often sensitive. Okay, that answers my question.
Lynette, what would be the process by which the town would engage in this with you? The grant application?
Yeah, so for the two grants, for the Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund grant and LCHIP, those are two state grants. Trust for Public Land would be the applicant, or we're proposing that we would be the applicant. So we'd be looking for support from the town, but the town wouldn't have to actually submit the applications. For the Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan application, the town would need to be the applicant. We can ghostwrite it and certainly provide, hand-in-hand support to the town. But you all would need to designate an authorized representative to work with me on putting that application together and then actually submitting it.
So internally, that would probably be the natural resources
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
sustainability
Okay.
planner.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Right.
Okay. Wishes of the board?
I'm comfortable moving ahead with what Lynette needs us to move ahead with.
Selectman Belanger?
I am too. I'm
concur.
comfortable.
Okay.
And we understand that the boundary issue, of course, is key, and really appreciate the willingness and interest in the board to still move forward with funding. It is critical to the timeline. As you know, these two projects are tied together, Newfields and Exeter. The landowner can't and does not want to proceed with one without the other because the appraised value is tied together. And that's a requirement of the Yellow Book. The federal Yellow Book standards is the appraiser needs to identify what's the larger parcel to value, and that larger parcel is both parcels together. So that's why, that and other reasons it's critical that these are both going together. And if we were to miss the funding this year, we wouldn't be able to meet the timeline, and it would potentially really risk the project. So appreciate that a lot. And then the grants, just to the non-binding point, as you all know from grant applications, they are an application. They're just that. It's not committing to the grant. And we will clearly explain where the boundary, what I would also need is hopefully by the time we submit these applications towards the middle or end of May, that we have a little bit more information that we can put into the grant applications on where we are with the boundary. And so that kind of sets up the stage for, if it's this acreage that we think it is, less this amount of acreage, we're able to clearly describe that in the application. But we can always make adjustments to the application before the final review. So we'll still have probably about 2 to 3 months to make final adjustments before the applications decisions are made.
Great. Well, the board has been and remains committed to continue discussions, and hopefully we can bring a resolution sooner than later to help with that.
Okay, great.
So, Mr. Dean, would Lynette reach out to your office to initiate this process?
Yes, that would be great. We've been talking already, and so we can continue that conversation.
Terrific. Great. Thank you. Anything else?
I have nothing else.
Well, Lynette, we appreciate the update. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is an exciting opportunity, and we look forward to having you back soon.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us.
Yep.
Appreciate seeing you again. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good to see you guys.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you. All right, moving along, our next discussion item, we have our town planner, Mr. Dave Sharples, with us this evening with a urbanized exemption request.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good evening.
Good evening. As you said, I'm here tonight to see if the select board would like to submit what's called an urbanized exemption from the Shoreland Water Quality Protection Act. And the Shoreland Water Quality Protection Act is a state law that applies to great ponds and fifth order and higher streams. And fifth order, like the first order is like where, headwaters, and then where it goes into another one, second order, and you kind of count them down. And then the fifth order and higher are the bigger rivers, like the Exeter River, Little River, Squamscott River. And it basically regulates a 250-foot buffer from the high tide mark in coastal waters or the high water mark in freshwater. And there is an exemption allowed in the Act in Section 483B12, shoreland exemption. I'll just read it. The governing body of a municipality may, in its discretion, request the commissioner to exempt all or a portion of the protected shoreland within its boundaries from the provision of this chapter if the governing body finds that special local urbanization conditions as defined in RSA 483B4 Roman numeral 25 exist in the protected shoreland for which the exemption is sought. If the governing body of a municipality requests such an exemption, it shall submit evidence of existing and historical patterns of building and development in the protected shoreland in demonstration of the special local urbanized conditions. Such evidence shall address current and past building density, commercial, industrial, residential uses, municipal or other public utilities, current municipal land use regulations which affect the protected shoreland, designation as a downtown, community center, central business district, or urbanized area or urban cluster as delineated by the United States Census Bureau, and any other information which the Commission may reasonably require. And what is included in the packet in my memo is attachment first. The first attachment is the Exeter Urbanized Area Request Map. We all have that in the packet there, and that's the red hatched area. And it's basically one side of the Squamscott River, the downtown side, basically from Swasey Parkway, the boathouse, the Stewart Park, goes behind all along Water Street, includes the island at String Bridge, and then goes up to Great Bridge and includes the Long Block, which is the one building on the south side of the Squamscott that is on the downtown side. And then it does include the library on the other side of the park, of the river. And this is the only portion that would be subject to the request. The rest of the Squamscott, the mills across the way, and south, downstream. I mean it's actually north, but downstream, upstream, all applies. You just ask for a special. You ask for an exemption where urbanization exists, because I believe the state recognized when they made the law that, downtowns that have been developed for hundreds of years and are just basically impervious surfaces, there's really nothing to regulate. There's nothing to review. But it is a permit that people have to get. And under attachment 2, I described the current and past building density. And it's about 13.2 acres of densely development land. It's about 93% impervious right now, and the only really green space is town-owned. It's that little strip along the boardwalk, by Stewart Park. It's Pearpoint Park that was recently purchased, and then it's across the way Founders Park and by the library. That's basically the only green space, if you will, in this area. So I felt an exemption would be warranted. There are numerous communities in New Hampshire that have asked for and received them. Claremont, Dover, Franklin, Goffstown, Gorham, Keene, Laconia, Lincoln, the list goes on. There's about 20 municipalities in New Hampshire that have downtowns where they have a fifth order stream or on a great pond, and they've asked for exemptions under the law and have received them. I did bring it up. I didn't know if I was even going to bring this forward and it's not required by the state law. The state law doesn't mention any land use boards, approval or recommendations, but I did bring it on my own accord. I brought it up to the planning board, and I just wanted to start the conversation. They were very willing to talk about it, and then they ended up voting in support of it, unanimous support, and said, we think it's reasonable to ask for this, one less permit that people have to get, and really there's not much, there's no woodland buffer or vegetative buffer left to protect.
Right.
And then I took it to the Conservation Commission, had a pretty robust discussion there. The majority of it was 6-1, they voted for it. I did put an email in because there was a member that's also on the Exeter Squamscott Local River Advisory Committee that sent an email. Teresa Walker, I got an email from a meeting they had. They said they did not support the request. But I felt that since the planning board unanimously supported, the Concom overwhelmingly supported it, I would bring it to the select board for their consideration. And be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Sloppy chair.
I appreciate that you included the memo from the Exeter Squamscott River Local Advisory Committee. I understand their concerns, but I think given that we want to use our urban core more intensively and encourage developers to do that, their concerns are outweighed by our trying to preserve green space outside that urban core and direct development in, and so I'm in favor of us getting this exemption if we can.
David,
it reduces the amount of cost for developers to work in our urban core, which is what we want, according to our master plan. Sorry.
It's okay. I thought you were done.
No.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on the Conservation Commission evening? So I've sat through this presentation twice, and the concern that was brought up, why one member wasn't in favor of this, and can you remember? I know it's been like 6 weeks, but just so the public or this board can understand, you felt there was still protection there.
They felt that it was like, well, it's a regulation and it protects the shoreline, so I don't want to you shouldn't get rid of it. And myself and others on the Conservation Commission, particularly a couple that actually work for at least one of them or two of them work for the state and are familiar with this permit and this act, it really doesn't do anything to protect anything in urbanized areas. That's why they provide the exemption. Because they say, 0 to 50 feet, you count all the trees, you can, it's a point system that and then you have to maintain that amount of points. Well, there's no points. So it's almost like they just kind of, it's more of a pushing paper exercise to the state. And I actually went through this and I got an exemption in one of the other 20 communities, and when I was talking to them, they want this. They should think the urbanized areas. That's why they put that in there, because there's really nothing for them to review. So I didn't quite. I mean, I asked a specific question to say what is it that is going to be lost? What kind of regulatory provisions are going to be lost that that is going to impact the resource negatively? And I did not get an answer. So
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. No, thank you.
I don't really know what value it has, except a paper exercise and time and expense to people.
Yeah. And the planning board, when Mr. Sharples came to present it to us, he was not prepared for us to vote, and everyone was pretty excited about it and said, no, we'll do a vote. So, yeah, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Just to repeat, I understand their concern, and if there were no advantage to encouraging developers to do something our master plan is in our master plan and we're asking developers to consider, then I would not be in favor of this, but there is an advantage. We're eliminating a paper-pushing exercise, and I think that outweighs their concern that they won't be notified. So that's the reason for my being in support of it. But I acknowledge their concern.
I agree with that, and I'm also, also pleased that you went before our Land Use Concom Planning Board, where they didn't need to vote, but your presentation prompted them to vote, and that convinces me as well. So, if there are no questions or comments, I'd like to move forward and entertain a motion to authorize the town manager or their designee to submit a request for an urbanized exemption in accordance with NHRSA 483-B-12 as presented.
So moved.
And I will second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. Can I add just one thing
Of
on
course.
that?
Yeah.
And just to be clear, just so everyone knows, I forgot to put this in my presentation, is the select board doesn't determine if you have an exemption. You just, as your motion said,
Understood.
you just make the request. The state DES, it goes to the commissioner. The commissioner asks advice from the Office of State Planning, and if they don't feel like it's warranted, then they won't give it to us.
Right.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cronin, one last time. And we'll let you go.
This is the good stuff.
It is the good stuff.
This is progress.
It's always a pleasure to move forward with the will of the voters.
Yes, yep. So this is just a bit of housekeeping for the SRF process. As you know, these projects before you were approved by the voters. What we're asking tonight is that you authorize the town manager or his designee to sign the loan agreements on behalf of the town so that we can secure the funding we need to proceed with these three important projects.
Well, thank you. I have no questions, but I just want to thank you for moving forward with these three projects. Any comments or questions?
No, let's vote.
Comments or
What he
questions?
said.
All right. So we have three motions to entertain this evening. The first of which is I'd entertain a motion to enter into and approve a loan agreement for the School Street Utility and Street Improvement Project with NHDES in the amount of $4,831,952. $852, excuse me, to the town of Exeter, and to authorize the town manager, the assistant town manager, or the select board chair to sign the paperwork associated with such agreement.
So moved.
And I will second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. The second is to entertain a motion to enter into and approve a loan agreement for the new water treatment plant design with NHDES in the amount of $500,000 to the town of Exeter, and to authorize the town manager, the assistant town manager, or the select board chair to sign the paperwork associated with such agreement.
So moved.
And I will second.
So motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. And finally, I'd entertain a motion to enter into and approve a loan agreement for the Water Street Stormwater Plan with NHDES in the amount of $100,000 to the town of Exeter and to authorize the town manager, the assistant town manager, or the select board chair to sign the paperwork associated with such agreement.
So moved.
And I will second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you very much. Nice to see you again.
Sure you don't, there's only a little bit left. You sure you don't want to stay?
I'm sure he'll be back many times
I
between now and
know.
the siphon
We'll be
completion.
seeing him in 2 weeks or thereabouts, I have a feeling. Okay.
Thank you, Steve. Okay. Selectwoman Belanger is acting as our clerk this evening,
I am.
so
I don't see how I can group any of them, so bear with me and here we go.
you could probably group
I can,
some of them.
yeah, the second part, the veterans credits, right? Anyway,
You
let me
you
just,
could group the first two in the abatements.
because it's the same property?
Yep.
I'm a little out of practice being the clerk. Okay, I move map 110, lot 2, unit 81, and same map lot, for the amount of $66.95 for the tax year 2023, and the amount of $61.88 for the tax year 2022 be abated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
And one more abatement is map 110, lot 2, unit 83, in the amount of $88.37 for the tax year 2023.
And I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, veterans credit.
I think you can group the first.
Yeah, I'm going to group the first two, map 80, lot 9, in the amount of $500 for tax year 2024, and an amount of $2,000 for the tax year 2024. Disability, do I have to point out? The second one's a disability.
As a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So I can group the next ones the same amounts, I just have to say all the map and lot numbers, right?
Yep, you list the
Yes.
each individual map, lot, unit.
Yep, got
the
it.
amount,
So,
tax year.
you ready, Joanne? Map 84, lot 9, map 29, lot 19, map 47, lot 8, unit 406, map 72, lot 98, map 47, lot 8, unit 3213, all in the amount of $500 for the tax year of 2024.
And this is a veteran's credit, correct?
Correct.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, solar exemption, map 84, lot 9, in the amount of $17,000 for tax year 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
Map 60, lot 24, unit 1, in the amount of $15,000 for tax year 2024.
Second.
I think it was 17,000.
Did I say,
The first one's
No.
17, the second one.
second one's
the second
15?
one.
15.
Nope.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Joanne. Always good to have that.
So I'll second that.
So motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
Elderly exemption, map 29, lot 8, in the amount of $152,251 for the tax year 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
Map 104, lot 79, unit 911, in the amount of $236,251 for the tax year 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
And-
Motion carries.
Finally, map 104, lot 79, unit 122, in the amount of $183,751 for the tax year 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Selectwoman Belanger.
Thank you. Once I get rolling, I'm pretty good.
Mr. Tovey, thank you for your
Neptune.
patience this evening.
No problem. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We do the radios first?
Sorry?
Can we do the radios first?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was just going to ask which one would you like to start with? All right. So you all seen in your packet Neptune Radio. We'd like to enter into a contract with them for a few reasons. Main reason is to ensure that we have lyric-safe music. There's no inappropriate language or inappropriate messages, innuendos. It also gives the Daniel R. Healy Memorial Pool a professional feel and more to enhance the experience there for everyone. There's also custom branded messages that we control. So if a pop-up thunderstorm comes up, we can just hit play for those messages and it'll notify everyone that we're closing the pool. You know, please leave the pool deck area, go back to your cars, stay safe. So we can come up with all sorts of custom messages. If there's any sort of town event or specific update that we want to have, we can have those. And they're created not by us, but by Neptune Radio. So much more professional radio voice. And so it'll really enhance the experience and I think improve on communication. It also, there's an opportunity to sell advertisements there to businesses or anyone that would like to purchase ad space. So it'll help us recuperate not only the expenses for the service itself, but also the equipment. So after a few years, we'll recuperate all those expenses, and then it'll help us pay for other expenses at the pool. We pay a lot in pool chemicals and all sorts of supplies, so that'll help with expenses at the pool as well. As we were looking into this, looking through their proposal, started looking into music licensing and discovered that the town does pay for one of the 4 major music licenses, and Neptune does cover the other one of the 4, so we got 2. We do have to purchase 2 other ones, and unfortunately, because of the venue, Neptune does cover all 4, but because of the venue, they don't cover 2 of the major ones. So we've contacted the other 2 and got quotes from them, which I included. So it's another good thing. If we don't have those music licenses, we can't play music at the pool, whether it's Spotify or anything like that. And it starts to open up discussion on, well, we play music at the Powder Keg and we play music at other events and we play music at summer camp. So we want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves and, you know, don't open up the town to any sort of litigation. Again, selling these ads, we feel pretty confident that we'll be able to get the 4 ads at tier 1. If you go up to tier 2, that's 8 ads or 8 businesses you can sell to. We'd like to start at 1. It also includes some banner placement down at the pool as well. And of course, we'd be following our sponsorship policy with all of that too. So I'd open it to any questions. I think I've covered it all, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I could just say, I'm particularly excited about the emergency notification
Yes.
part of this. I mean, music, fun, you want to have it, we have to be
Right.
covered. That you thought ahead and tried to recoup some of our costs. I'm very much appreciative of that, but being able to, if there's a fast-moving thunderstorm, that you can alert the kids pretty quickly for
Right.
summer camp and things. I do know during the Conservation Commission meeting, one of the, changed that one to recreation. One of the people asked about having this year-round, and it was, the speakers will come down. It won't be a winter,
Correct.
so,
Yep, they're outdoor speakers, but we would take them down
Yeah.
since they're not being used, and we want to make sure they last as long as possible.
yeah.
We've worked with the IT department. We also had someone that they recommended come out as a consultant, and just making sure we're covering all our tracks, and we don't want to damage anything. So yeah.
Yeah, and just to follow up, if I could, increase the cost year to year. This is a 1-year contract.
This is a 1-year contract, and I did ask Neptune if they plan to increase their fees, if they foresee that in the next 5-10 years, and they told me no.
Yeah. Do we know how often they've increased their fees?
I asked if they've increased in the last 5 years, and they haven't.
Okay.
So I think it's safe to say that they could be.
Probably do, but that's
Yeah.
okay. That was more of our curiosity. I still think it's a good program, and thank you for researching. I know you've spent a lot of time on this, so thank you.
Of course, yeah.
And it's interesting as it pertains to the music. There was an article in the Boston Globe a couple of weeks ago about an establishment in Massachusetts that's actually being sued by one of the music publishers for playing the music.
Yep.
It's
With no
it's a
license?
restaurant bar, and they didn't purchase something as
I'm sure it's a hefty fine.
incredibly hefty
Yes,
fine.
that's, we discovered that as well. So.
And the licensing authorities are very aggressive, too, as far as
They are.
coming after the towns and other entities to make sure that we have the licenses.
Well, and for good reason.
Sure.
It's,
Yeah.
taking away from artists.
And the other good thing about us purchasing these other two music licensing is that it does apply to all town departments. So if anyone else wants to play music or at a town event, we're covered.
Great.
Yeah.
That's good. Did you have any questions?
Yeah, so where does the $3,351.92 come from? How do we cover this?
Is that you're adding up the equipment?
What's the total?
Yep, the
I have
total.
4 items.
Can you? I came with a different amount.
What did you come up with?
I've got $8,351.92.
It's $375, $1,200, $1,003, and $773.92. It's just over $3,300.
Yep, 30.
My fault. I mistook the extra dollar sign you put in there for a 5.
Was there? Oh, in the memo. Yep.
So we'll go with. I like Selectman Chartrand's figure better. Could I
So
have that again?
$3,351.92.
Yep.
And where is that money coming from?
So, we'd pay it out of the rec revolving fund.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's it. I'm done. I'm ready to go.
Okay. 335,112.
That's what I got.
Okay.
Check my work.
No, I trust you. With the Novak lighting, that extra dollar sign looked like a 5. Is that your last shot? I know you're going to have one more in you before the night's over. If there are no more questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to authorize the Park and Recreation Department to enter into a 1-year contract with Neptune Radio for a setup fee, annual price, the equipment, which includes speakers, amplifier, speaker wire, surge protector, as well as 2024 music licenses in the amount total $3,351.92 to be raised through the Recreation Revolving Fund.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. And then the other memo, we have been working with volunteers as well as Natalie Healy over the winter to clean up the memorial down by the pool. And during this process, Natalie requested to modify the pool name. She explained to us that Dan was a Danny. And although that is a little informal for a town facility, she felt that Dan was a great compromise. So we're requesting to change the facility name to the Dan Healy Memorial Pool. And it works out well with the radio, and we have budgeted for a new sign, so we should be able to align everything with that new name.
And is there any money that you need in the motion, or have you already?
Nope, this memo's from Greg, so it's either rec revolving or park improvement fund. I would assume that it's rec revolving.
Okay. Do we know an amount, Mr. Dean?
I don't have the amount.
I don't have that either for the
They will
pool sign.
probably approach us about that at another time.
Given the family's request, I'd like to at least move forward with the motion to authorize the renaming, if that's okay with the board members?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Is that okay? Then if there are no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to replace the sign of the Daniel R. Healy Memorial, utilizing to be determined funds from the Rec Revolving Fund, and to modify the pool's name to, quote, Dan Healy Memorial Pool, end quote, as requested by the Healy family.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you all.
Turley.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Dean?
All right, some highlights from the past week. First, I'll touch on the police fire substation meeting that we had on Friday. It was a successful meeting. Dave Sharples has drafted an RFP for an on-site project manager for the project. We've had some robust discussion about the format of the project, how that should work, and the consensus of the group came down on the OPM concept. So we've issued an RFP, and we expect to get proposals back on that. I think the deadline is May 3rd.
Correct.
On that. So we're looking forward to getting a robust list of proponents to choose from. A lot of interest in this project, so should be a good experience. I held the weekly operations meeting on April 12th. That was also a successful meeting to hear from all the different departments about their goings-on for the week. I also attended the Housing Advisory Committee meeting on the 12th, where we discussed mainly state legislative updates on housing initiatives. Then attended the goal-setting session of the board on April 13th, so we'll be getting the results of that out to you soon on that.
Great.
And then this week, I'm going to meet with Coast on Wednesday to discuss their this fiscal year's funding request. Coast has been level funded at $20,000 for the last few years, and they're looking for more money. So we're going to be talking to them about what their needs are, and likely have them come before the board at a subsequent meeting. And then we've also begun resume review for the Welfare Human Services position internally. So we've got applicants, and we're excited about that, and we're working on that process.
Terrific. And could you, I think we have a new employee downstairs.
Yes, we do. Laura Fiorenza has joined us as our Human Resources Assistant in the Human Resources Office. So we have extra support there.
Well, we welcome.
Or needed
Welcome,
support.
Laura.
I shouldn't say extra support. It's much needed.
Much needed.
Yes.
Thank you, Laura, and welcome. And that's it.
That's it.
Okay. Select Board Committee reports, Selectwoman Belanger.
So Planning Board last Thursday was canceled. There were no applicants in the queue, so we had that night off. But I had the Communications Advisory Committee meeting that night. I covered for Molly because of the rescheduled from the storm. So they reviewed a memo written by Bob Glacki to Rustine, our town manager, on the progress in Communications Department. Some of the things that were discussed were how we can use videos on future warrant articles to help with education of them, and how it seems to have been very effective with the Siphon project and the safety facilities building, which I'm glad passed before you retired, Chief. Budget process and how we can, that was a big discussion, how we can better educate on the process. And let's see. They asked for insight from the select board on the next steps, which I was copied on the original email on that, and I suggested they reach out to the chair for next steps on that. Then I had a housing advisory committee the next morning on the 12th. In addition to our legislative updates, we talked about this logistical issue of when we're having workforce housing or any type of housing that requires qualification, we have really nothing set in place for those qualifications to be re-upped, if you will, every year. So we're trying to pull together. The chair, Lindsay Sonnet, is going to work with Nick Taylor, who is the Seacoast Workforce Housing Director, to see if we can pull together a few people to come to our next meeting and make sure we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's and what that might look like. So if legislation passes at the State House, we need to have something in place. There's a cost to it, so we need to know where that cost is going to be absorbed. But we want to kind of have a broader picture of what that might look like. And that's it for me.
That's it for you? Okay, thank you. Selectman Charter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Tuesday evening, I attended the Conservation Commission. Selectwoman Belanger very graciously came and said goodbye and introduced me to the Conservation Commission, so that was very gracious of her. I appreciated that. Because I was running late this evening, and I apologize to all three of you and Joanna for holding up the meeting, I was not able to grab my notes from that Conservation Commission, so I'm going to wait to give my report till our next meeting. But I did want to mention that I, too, like the town manager, attended the goal-setting session last Saturday, and I was late to that. I want to apologize to you for that. So that's my theme. I've been late lately.
Yes, I did attend the goal session. We all did.
And that's my report.
We appreciate you being here with us, so.
It's good to be here.
Let's see, I had the tree committee met since we were last together, and, excuse me, they're continuing to review where they're going to plant the new trees with their budget. Talked about participation at the AOY Festival. Bob Glowacki's going to be working with them to get them more of a social media presence and a presence on Exeter TV. They get a briefing on the Pearpoint Park Committee being established, and also the Arbor Day that we spoke of earlier with the proclamation. Arts and Culture met last Wednesday. They're continuing their discussion on the sign in front of Town Hall. More to come on that. And that was basically the extent of that conversation. Asked some questions about Swasey Parkway this summer. Obviously, with the siphon still being there. And they were going to reach out to your office to find a new date because they're having a hard time meeting a quorum on Wednesday nights. So I asked them to reach out to Pam McElroy.
Okay.
And hopefully they've done that. I've participated in the public safety complex meetings with the department heads in the town manager's office. And I have to say, I'm just impressed with really the representation from the police department and the fire department. Doug Eastman, Dave Sharples, Corey Stevens, our finance director, and of course the assistant town manager and town manager. Just seeing all of these folks working together towards this common goal. In that last meeting, Mr. Sharples came in with the RFP for the OPM.
Yes.
And then started walking through an informal timeline, and it's just really excited. Even though we're a long ways to go before we start breaking ground, it's exciting, and just exciting to see all the department heads coming together for this common goal, and you can see the joy and the anticipation of getting this going. So that's been rewarding, and I appreciate you inviting me to the meetings. Goal setting, that was very productive. I'm trying to think what else. We're going to start our budget talks this Wednesday.
Yes, Wednesday.
BRC chair. And we haven't been together since the storm, but Chief, since you're here, I want to take the opportunity to thank the fire department and the police department, as well as the linemen representing the electric. This was a bad storm. I know a lot of folks were in despair for quite a bit of time, and thank you to your department and Chief Poole and his department for
DPW.
continuing to keep us safe. DPW, never forget them.
I know you
So,
didn't.
thank you. That's all I've got for that. Correspondence, we have an email that was sent regarding the food trucks from Ann Kenny. We have the annual report from the Exeter Sportsman's Club and also the NHMA legislative update. Reviewing the board calendar, we'll reconvene April 29th, May 13th, May 28th, June 10th, June 24, and July 8th. And I'll stop there. We have a lot of work to do, so
We do.
looking forward to that. If there are no other comments or any other issues or discussion items, we do need to go into non-public very quickly. We do have a quorum. I don't want to hold this up. So without objection, I entertain a motion to enter into non-public under RSA 91A 32A and C.
So moved.
And I'll second.
I'm going to ask that you take a roll call, the three of us.
Selectman Chartran.
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. The board will be moving into non-public. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.